our pets are no longer what they were 50 years ago. Our pets are our family members, our children. And so the way that we think about healthcare for them is rapidly evolving. And that's a conversation for pet owners and for vets alike. I can't imagine my life without having a mini zoo around me, and they just make our lives so much richer. I mean, every day. We're talking about this change of how pets have evolved in our homes and in society, and how people are expecting or want or desire the best healthcare for their pets. But what comes with all these advancements in technology and pharmacy and all these opportunities, also there's a correlating cost.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Paws Effect Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Cara. And a quick reminder before we start to hit that subscribe button and feel free to leave us a comment. Before we get into today's conversation with Heather Moore from PetCentric, I'd like to say a thank you to Stitched, who have kindly sponsored the scrubs that I'm wearing today. I've stepped out of my usual black and into something a little softer. And honestly, I'm loving the change. At Hillcrest Vets, our whole team wears Stitch. They're built for comfort, they last, and they keep up with everything our day throws at us, whether we're crouching on the floor, handling patients, or running around between consults. Their new winter range is out now, and if you're in practice and haven't tried them yet, it's worth having a look. Now, subscription models have changed how we access just about everything, from TV shows to groceries. But what if they could also change the way we approach pet healthcare? Today, I'm joined by Heather Moore, founder and CEO of PetCentric Health, to talk about how subscription-based veterinary plans could offer a smarter, more sustainable way forward for clinics and for pet owners. PetCentric helps practices build proactive care plans that bring consistency to pets and stability to veterinary teams. And it's a model that might just shift the way we think about veterinary medicine altogether. Let's get into it. So very warm welcome, Heather.
Yes.
Thank you. All the way from the US.
Thank you for having me so much. Yes, from the East Coast over here. Thank you very much for having me. Looking forward to it.
No, very excited. So obviously, let's start out. I mean, I'd love to know a little bit more about you. How did you find your place? You're not a vet. How did you come across the work that you're doing? I'd love to understand your journey.
Yes, it has been quite a journey. So I've spent most of my life in the human healthcare arena, actually, on the business side. But that background professionally landed me at a crossroads with all things kind of personal. Actually, my husband's family, there were two vets as my in-laws. And so the whole kind of our extended families had either been human medicine or animal medicine, it seems. And really, a few years ago, we had a quite pivotal conversation of what was happening in the human healthcare arena, for good or bad, and how was that translating into healthcare for pets, which is, such an interesting thing because our pets are no longer what they were 50 years ago. Our pets are our family members, our children. And so the way that we think about healthcare for them is rapidly evolving. And that's a conversation for pet owners and for vets alike. I mean, there's all these different intersections. And I really felt like there was such an opportunity to disrupt the way that pet care was being delivered from a financial perspective, and look into what are the different paths to make it better in the future for pet owners and veterinary teams alike, because both need a winning equation. And a lot of times I think there's so many issues that put them at a crossroads right now. So, and then I'm a lifelong animal lover. My home goes from horses to dogs to cats to office chameleon and hamsters and everything in between. And I can't imagine my life without having a mini zoo around me. And they just make our lives so much richer. I mean, every day.
Totally agree. Can't imagine life without pets. I'm always very suspicious of people who say they don't like animals.
Yes, I would agree with that. I won't share it totally, but my husband and I have a couple of things that always raise our suspicions on on people. And I have to say, having pets is one of those. I just can't imagine. I mean, obviously there's reasons people with allergies or otherwise, but I
Of
can't
course.
imagine not having a bunch of pets even in my bed. I mean, it's just true. They have got it. I want them around me all the time. They just make my life so much better.
And you met Luke, and Luke is obviously my podcast producer, and we podcast where he supports me in the same room, and he is allergic to Xena, and she loves him. It's always the way. They just know.
Particularly cats. They always know. They always know. Yeah,
So
and that makes it even that much more hilarious. Yes, I always feel bad saying that. You get suspicious, and then you think about people, who have allergies or otherwise, so I have to do a call out.
No, of course. No, me too.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the people who don't like animals are very good people. So I'll also do a disclaimer there before I get cancelled.
No, well, and they think we're strange. They think we're strange. Like, how would you, sleep with, a couple cats, a couple dogs? But, that's all I know.
No, it's so true. So true. But okay, so your path is obviously from some personal experience, seeing what's happening in human medicine, and ultimately you brought up something that's really relevant for our conversation here, and that is people are finding healthcare really expensive, and it can become quite a contentious issue from both sides. Vets obviously need to be paid in order to continue to practice and provide the kind of level of care and services that they want, and owners want the best for their pets. And in fact, now we're wanting to be able to offer more and more. So what have you set up? Tell us a little bit more about the structure of what you have put in place.
Yes, I mean, you're exactly right. So we're talking about this change of how pets have evolved in our homes and in society, and how people are expecting or want or desire the best healthcare for their pets, which is not available or the desire of society, let's say, not that long ago. But what comes with all these advancements in technology and pharmacy and all these opportunities, also there's a correlating cost. And I think one of the biggest misnomers is that, when people think vets are just raking in the money, they are doing, in reality, we see more and more vets try and figure out how to absorb costs themselves to support their clients and their pet owners, and actually sometimes end up in a losing situation because of that. So our goal at PetCentric is really to create a win-win, again, environment between vets and pet parents. And so we work with veterinarians right now in the U.S. We go from the East Coast to the West Coast, and help them build their own subscription health plans for their pet parents, so that it is a structure that resonates with people in a way that's similar to the way they think of primary care, but is able to translate that as a win-win for their pets, and the relationship, quite frankly, with their veterinarian as well. So they have a way to pay monthly through a subscription that covers a range of things that their pet would need during the year, both on the preventative side and then also on the unexpected side, the things that emerge that are not guaranteed. Just like if you have a child, your child might go in for, a potential ear infection. Well, that's the same thing as your dog. And so for us, it's about creating a solution that spans all of primary care and improves access and affordability for both sides. So both sides have a more healthy winning relationship as owners and veterinarians alike navigate all the changes that are happening in the industry, which are happening so rapidly.
And how does this compare, just so we get this point over and done with right at the start, how does it compare to the insurance that perhaps more people are familiar with?
Yes. So, we view that insurance is a really important part of the equation as well. I think the most challenging piece right now is education around what is the difference. So you're right. This is not insurance. This is a subscription health plan or care plan that's developed by the veterinarian. And so they own this bundle, they own the subscription, they decide what's in it. Our goal is to help make sure and help them with all of the financial analysis, the strategy, where do they want to improve clinically, the operational challenges of, offering and making it streamlined. And then, insurance is traditionally for the things that are not expected. So when someone buys insurance, they're buying something in the event something is going to happen. And really, while insurance is a critical tool in the event of major chronic issues or an acute accident, it's really a reactive tool in that you're buying it for in the event something is going to happen. And we say, that really shouldn't be the front runner in the industry. The front runner should be empowering pet owners and pet parents and veterinarians alike to say, no, what should we do that creates a foundation that's more likely to keep your pet healthy? That doesn't mean things aren't going to happen, but how do you lay the groundwork for long-term improved outcomes and improved health and better access to care and earlier identification of issues, so that hopefully the need for the actual insurance structure, those big things, is mitigated. But ideally, subscription care plans and insurance should work hand in hand in a perfect universe, but they are inherently different, and one being identified of what's going to happen, and one being focused on more what if something is going to happen. And so we think, sometimes it's a little bit of putting the cart before the horse, if you will, that, shouldn't necessarily be leading with insurance, but that's what consumers are most familiar with right now.
Absolutely. And when you're discussing these tailored plans with veterinarians, is it based on, obviously it's based on region and potentially what owners are requesting. So, but is it also allowing people to tailor it based on their financial position, so that they can say, I'm not in a position, for example, to have a subscription that costs a significant amount of money every month, but this is what I can afford, and this is what I'm prepared to be able to put aside for preventative healthcare.
Yes, it's an excellent point. So, the first thing we do is we really spend time with the veterinarian and their teams in more of almost like a consulting capacity. In some ways, think about it, to say, where are your pet parents right now? Where is your business right now? And what are your pet parents desiring? Sometimes I think there's a disconnect between what we want from a clinical gold standard to where is your community right now, and how do you grow with them and meet them where they are. It's always interesting to me when we talk to veterinarians and we say, have you surveyed your client base? Do you know how they're spending and where they want to spend and what's important to them? What are the things that they're interested in? And it's kind of meeting in that middle and understanding where they are. So we work with veterinarians to help them build a series of options that's generally tailored around kind of their ideal pet parent or their typical pet parent. And obviously there's not one size fits all. So they can offer plans that meet their needs as a veterinarian, but also meets their pet parents where they are. And then helps the pet parent to grow with them in that plan. So, sometimes, to your point, really on just cost, we'll see veterinarians that say, I want this gold standard of this excellence, and I want everyone to be doing exactly this. Well, that's great, but that's a price point that simply is not going to be palatable to your average consumer. How can we help you reach a middle ground and then grow from there? And so the plans are designed for the veterinarian and then offered kind of as set plans that they have to the pet parent. But the key there is making sure it's at a price point and includes value that their pet parents really want. Because if they don't have that win-win, the pet parent's not going to see value, and it's not going to deliver the clinical compliance and revenue opportunity for the veterinarian either.
Hey there, pet parents. It's Dr. Kara, the Ultra Pet Vet here. Brachycephalic, meaning short-muzzled dogs, have uniquely shaped jaws that can make picking up and chewing normal kibble really difficult. That's why Ultra Pet has created a kibble specifically designed for easy pickup. It contains glucosamine, chondroitin, and green lip muscle extract to help support your dog's joints so that they stay mobile and active. The inclusion of beet pulp and prebiotics helps support a healthy gut by promoting the growth of beneficial bacteria in the digestive system. Omega-3 and 6 fatty acids promote a shiny coat and a healthy skin. Ultra Pet offers 100% money-back guarantee. Try Ultra Pet's premium recipe for short-muzzled dogs today. And I mean, I can imagine as a practice that doesn't currently offer it, that there may be sort of hesitation in, there's a big education requirement here to inform people that, this is really what you should be doing for your pet. And you then need to communicate that these services will offer the following, but it also improves then compliance to be able to do that. Is that, am I getting the measure of it?
Yes. I mean, I think you hit the point on education. We have to start with education. And when another thing I would kind of say for veterinarians to think about is, look out in your office right now and the different things that are being offered and that are out there. Can you even explain why those pamphlets are out there? Can your team explain why? Is it just because it's out there because someone's, dropped some pamphlets by? And can you really explain the strategy? And you'll find that a lot of veterinarian teams themselves are confused about what's out there. What is this product versus that product? And so again, I think a lot of it is you have to start with the education of what are we trying to drive clinically, and then that education over to the pet parent of what are we trying to do. If you have your wellness panel and you get your diagnostic blood work, what is that going to inform us? How is that maybe going to keep your pet healthy during the year? And then, there's a big component as well of preventative care, but then there also is that need to have plans that don't just focus on the preventative care. So our model is that we say you need plans that focus on preventative care, but also the things that are going to cover for those minor issues. So they're coming in, again, needing an ear cytology, or they're having allergy issues, or these different things. You want a plan that's going to be able to address those things as well, because I think traditionally, at least in the US, there's been a lot of plans that are wellness only focused and preventative only focused. And that's great, and that's a step in the right direction. But it's a real dissatisfier for a pet as a pet owner if you come in and you're on this plan and the subscription and you need to get worked in for a sick visit and say, oh, that's not covered in your plan. And so that's really, I think, a big gap that's existed, at least here in the US, to say vets, and we need to be thinking more about what are the common things pet parents see throughout the year. And if I'm a pet parent and my dog's having vomiting or diarrhea, I want to be able to come in and also have that covered under my plan. And so I think having a more comprehensive approach is really critical for both sides as well.
Absolutely. And in terms of practices that offer a 24-hour service, are there plans that consider these kind of factors and owners who want to be part of a practice with a plan that will at least help them prepare? Because these are the contentious cases often where it's unexpected. And like you said, this is often when the conversation of insurance versus wellness plans comes in.
Right. So I think when you have we think of these plans as really these are your primary care plans. So these are the subscription plans that will cover things that are in wellness, as well as cover maybe an urgent care appointment or a same day appointment that have value outside of just wellness. They generally, from a price point standpoint, yes, they're not going to cover your extremely large ER visit. And that's why I think care plans and insurance have a place that really works hand in hand. And when, the cool thing about care plans or health plans that are vet tailored is they can customize them however they would like. So they can, if they have a large ER that's connected to them or an urgent care, they can factor those things in. So they, for example, could put in an urgent care exam, or they could put in a sick diagnostic test, et cetera. And so again, that's a way to help the pet parent receive value that they're most likely to need during that year, whether it's a dentistry, et cetera. And then it's just a big pet satisfier on the pet parent side. And we've also seen quite a lot of data to support, there's a whole access to care piece as well. You're seeing pet parents come in quicker for those small issues rather than snowballing to become this big acute issue because they sat at home with it for 2 weeks. I mean, that's another, I think, critical gap that exists right now in quite frankly, just pet access to healthcare across the board.
So what you're saying from my understanding is that it's not, people are not delaying seeking out treatment for their pets. How does this also help in terms of sort of compliance? The returning. We often discuss the number of clients who don't come back for the repeat visit. We talk about the skin case or the ear case, and you go, how do you know whether that ear infection is cleared up? Because owners are going, I'm assuming I've used the medication, that's great, and they don't come back. They don't come back, and it's often the main thing is they don't come back because of the costs associated with a return visit. Does this improve compliance and sort of general owner attitude?
Yes, I think one of the biggest challenges the disconnect between pet owners and veterinarians is that both sides are caught in quite archaic payment model, like a fee for service. You pay as you go. You pay on an a la carte basis. And that's really not how consumers want to spend anymore. I mean, that's clear. So, we want better cash predictability. We want budget smoothing. There's a reason the, subscription industry as a whole, streaming services or otherwise is, well over, $1 trillion at the end of 25. And it's because people want to have predictability of spend. And when they don't have predictability, they tend, even though they have well intentions, they tend to back away from that spend. And so I think there's a lot of consumer anxiety of, I'm going to have to go back in for that recheck. I don't know what it's going to cost me. It could be X range, but I have no visibility to what it's going to cost me till I show up. And what happens is then they're not compliant. And so, and that compliance is across the board. The compliance issues on the preventative side, but then also compliance issues on the non-preventative side for those sick visits or all of the things that we need rechecks on, we need compliance. Yeah, so we tend to focus too much of compliance just on the prevention. And there's so much other opportunity of compliance. And, our role is to be advocates for our pets. They talk to us, but they don't speak English or they don't speak the language that we're used to communicating in. And it really creates a challenge. And so the goal is, how do you improve access across the board? Not just compliance on the prevention, but also, like you said, compliance on the back end. And I think predictability and cost is one of the biggest factors that can influence that and ease that anxiety for people to come back in.
I totally agree. And in terms of building trust, is this a great way for because you say, as you said, it's predictable, it's transparent. Is this helping improve the relationship between clients and their vets?
We hope so. We believe so. When we look at the data suggests that. So, the two of the big metrics that you look at, are the bonding rate or the stickiness rate that you have. It's quite common to talk to veterinarians who believe that their active patient base is actually quite larger than it really is. And then you look at, who actually did come in over the past 12 months, and it's a subset of those. And so that's a critical metric to say, are you creating that trusting relationship? We know pet owners still, if they talk about the pet industry as a whole, their veterinarian still is their most trusted partner, but that doesn't mean that they're always going to be compliant. And that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to have a trust that's deep enough that drives them to continually come back in. So I think you have to have solutions that are transparent, that are predictable, that are high in pet parent education. And when you look at models that are annual subscriptions or health plans, they really have a great way of improving that stickiness through the year, that you're getting them to come in 1 to 2 to 3 times a year. And that each time you have an opportunity to build that rapport with your pet owner. If you see them just one time a year and then maybe they go somewhere else for a sick visit or they buy something off of Chewy, the ability for you to develop that provider and owner bond is lessened. You have maybe one time to really make it stick. And so this clearly is one of the strategies to help with those bonding rates, and to have your pet parents come back in. And the more they come in and the more that they see how the hospital is supporting their pet, that just increases those good endorphins in that relationship. And, that's been kind of proven over and over again in terms of, frequency. And the U.S. right now is struggling in that we're down in frequency. I don't know how things are in the U.K. and South Africa, but we're down in frequency in hospitals. And, I think a lot of that has to do with pet parents being uneasy about the economics and uneasy about price. And, that doesn't create a win for pets, and it doesn't create a win for veterinarian teams either.
No, and it's very difficult when owners, like you said, are treating their pets more like children, and the bond is there and the intentions there, but the means are not. So there's such a disconnect between the two, and the great intention, but just not necessarily the ability. I love the fact that you're saying that actually it can improve loyalty to the practice, because obviously when you're discussing the benefits of taking on these plans, I think there may be some hesitation that you may be putting your clients off by offering these things, because they will feel that this is going to be, we all imagine the gym subscription. I imagine the gym subscription and the number of times I have become a gym member and then just not used it.
Yes.
So, that's my memory of subscription. So, you want to be able to offer value and improve loyalty to your practice, as well as obviously improve the patient's healthcare. So I think it's also great in terms of developing that relationship with your clients, because if there is a problem, for example, they're more likely to come and approach you and try and manage it and deal with it, rather than say, okay, well, I'm going to go down the road and try someone else. So many benefits of investing and sort of putting your mark on one particular practice, I can imagine.
Yes, and you make an excellent point on the gym membership, or the subscription of you buy it and you forget about it. And we'd say, subscriptions, or any subscription works in the same way, or any care plan. It has to be part of a multidimensional strategy of engagement. It's basically, how are you engaging with your pet owners to drive loyalty? And this is the tool that you can do it through. And it's hopefully a loyalty tool. It's a financial predictability tool. It's a tool for better access and higher compliance. Hopefully it hits all of those things, but you also have an obligation as a veterinary owner or in a hospital to help your pet parent understand that, and that communication. Our care plans, for example, come with a pet parent app, so that we can help, so they can see what's in their subscription. They'll get pinged when they need to come back in, and those kind of different behavior tools are effective. And there's a lot of things in technology that you can leverage to increase that engagement. But it's so important that hospitals have really robust engagement tools as part of this, that they're communicating with their pet parents, that they're encouraging them to come back in, that they're following up on them. When I have a sick visit and someone from the team calls and asks me how the pet is doing the next day, that the amount of, yes, that's a 20-second phone call someone's having to make, and it does take time, but those are the really low-hanging fruits that create loyalty and stickiness. We're seeing just massive fractured spending in the U.S. around pet health. It used to be that you would buy everything you needed from your pet from one place, your vet. And now people are buying 5, 6, 7 places, particularly on the product side. And vets are looking at this fractured spending and saying, well, what do I do? How do I increase loyalty? How do I get them to consolidate and come back to me? And you have to be engaging with them through a lot of different dualities, or modalities rather. And this is just one of those tools that can hopefully help in a few different areas.
It's very interesting. And have you come across situations where maybe the implementation of these plans has been a little bit more challenging? Are there particular practices where it's maybe not resonated as well with the client base?
I think there's two key areas where you can get it wrong. And there's probably more than that, but one is kind of back to, do you have a pulse on your client base? We see a lot of situations where they just don't have a pulse on their client base. They haven't surveyed their clients. They aren't, they're not aware of trends that are kind of happening within their own client base. And that's a challenge just around data in this industry. There really is a lot of challenges around data transparency, data visibility, and owners knowing how to look at their data and make it work for them. Sometimes you'll you'll see vet owners that just say, I don't know what's going on. And you'll find out that, their pediatric patients, or they've only attracted maybe, 5% of pediatric patients over the last year. Well, that means new pet owners are going elsewhere. Why is that? What's happening? And so that's one thing of not having a good pulse. And then the other thing is viewing an offering as like everything's going to do it by itself. It's going to, and that doesn't, it could be a care plan, it could be a new incentive that they're offering, just thinking, well, I'm going to put it out there and it's going to just sell itself, or it's going to do, you have to be a champion for educating your pet owners and also championing your own business. And, you have to use, again, multiple modalities, different communication strategies, follow up, and then the other thing I think is incentivizing your own teams. I think vet med is quite hierarchy based still, and we'll often see veterinarians and teams who they're not used to incentivizing their team members. They're not used, and you always say, it needs to be, the team has to be front to back. The receptionist at the front or your CSR has to have the same message as whoever is in the back. And that culture is so critical. And so when you don't see good cultural dynamics like that, that also can be recipes for trouble.
I can imagine, and this is so true. I mean, from experience, your front team is also so critical that you come together and you all are talking the same language and you understand the mechanisms and the aims of what you're trying to, especially in terms of current promotions. And like you say, with this, our work is seasonal, but it's quite repetitive in terms of the cases that we're seeing. So if you don't understand your business, then it can be very difficult to then mitigate some of the risks.
And it's very cliche, but it does go back to what is the why of that hospital or that practice. And everyone's why is a little bit different. And any team should be able to have kind of the same, they should be able to verbalize, what is our unique story, our unique mission, our unique why, what are we trying to achieve? And I always am so comforted when I talk to teams that say our focus is blank because we believe blank. And if you have a team that can say that front to back, front house to back of house, those are the teams that just do better. And what's interesting is the culture, eats the strategy for breakfast, and then the outcome of that is almost always hospitals that have better compliance, better pet parent engagement, and quite frankly, better revenues profiles. They just as a whole organically do better. And it starts at, maybe, again, something that sometimes is viewed as kind of cliche as their why, their mission, but it impacts the entire really success metrics of the hospital.
So is that something that you assist practices with? If they do not, for example, understand their client base, do you go out and survey? Do you assist them with how to better communicate with their team as well as their clients? I mean, is that part of the whole package of what you offer?
Yes, it is. And it's a big focus for us. There's a lot of solutions that are out there that are kind of a software solution, where hospitals can do this on their own. They can build a plan, or, it's kind of companies that offer a piece of it. Our approach is saying you have to get really deep in the data from the beginning. You have to understand how your pet parents are behaving, what you're trying to accomplish, and what has also happened. This industry in the U.S. and I think, worldwide is changing so rapidly. And there are big revenue shifts for every hospital and how things are happening, whether they're seeing direct to consumer, pharmacy competition or otherwise. A lot of times hospitals don't even realize what's happening in their own data. So we go very deep in the data to baseline where a hospital is, try and figure out where they want to go from a strategic position, and then build the care plans that, again, create that win-win environment, what they want clinically and what their strategies are, while at the same time meeting their pet parents where their pet parents are today and where they're wanting to go. And if you can strike that middle ground through data, you have to have a deep understanding, I think, of the data. Those are the hospitals that are the most successful. It's just the days of I'm just going to pull together some things and offer it as a bundle, those are not really the strategies that we're looking for. We're really saying, how do you stay successful and competitive in a very quickly evolving market? And how do you use health plans as a strategy for the future?
And when you talk about customization, are you referring to you customizing it for the practice, or are you customizing this for individual pet owners' needs?
That's a great question. So right now we customize specifically for our hospitals. Today we don't have a direct-to-consumer product where a pet parent can go on PetCentric and buy a plan to use anywhere. So right now we work with hospitals to develop their unique subscriptions that's white labeled for them, and that is marketed as their care plans. However, every single plan has a degree of flexibility. So all of the plans will have some component of things that the vets want. So for example, I want people to come in ideally 2 times a year for their well visit, and I would like for these, vaccines or this type of diagnostic. And then there's a component of the subscription, generally is about, 40 to 50% of the value of the subscription through the year that is completely flexible. And so that is, again, meeting pet parents where they are so that they can use that portion of the subscription for whatever they want. They can use it for a sick visit. They could use it towards an allergy medication. They could use it towards a dentistry. And that flexibility factor, that component of the subscription is our biggest satisfier when we survey pet parents and hospital owners, because again, it kind of sets the framework for how the hospital would like certain things to be done clinically, but then meets pet parents where they are from a flexibility standpoint, because everybody's story is different. And then they can, again, leverage that part of the subscription however they want. Some might use it on grooming. Some might use it on again, something proactive. Some might use it on laser therapy. We're seeing a big push right now with focus around acupuncture and holistic and different and integrative medicine strategies. And this is a wonderful way that pet parents can start dabbling into that with a subscription. And again, to have cost predictability as they do that.
Yeah, I can see why that would be really attractive, particularly because, people, you don't always think about those little things that add up. And then when it comes to,
Sure.
The small perks of it, it can really, again, just improve the client experience, but also just keep them coming back to your practice for things that are not necessarily, serious or, predictable, as you said.
Exactly. And, it also is a way to help. There's such a huge topic around, the mental health and the pressure and the upsell pressure, and you're in the hospital, and we hear people say all the time, I don't want my team to be salespeople. And no, but you're inherently somewhat are, because of the way that healthcare is structured and how people pay for pet care. And this can be one of those tools. There's all kinds of different tools to reduce that stress for your team. So, there's nothing more stressful for a pet owner than they've got a treatment plan ahead of them. And there's nothing more stressful for them. And then it's very stressful for the team who's presenting this treatment plan and the cost associated. And so when you have a care plan or a health plan that also has a component of flexible spend, so we call, to say, remember, you have $500 that can be used towards this in your care plan. And that can just be such a stress reducer. The care plan might not solve the whole treatment plan cost, but it goes a long way in reducing that inherent anxiety that comes when, you're having to make a discussion have a discussion about something that, is often increasingly high cost and high kind of stressful moment, in that treatment room.
And it's difficult because we are not generally trained to have those kind of conversations. And there's some people who do a better job of it. I have to admit that I find it quite difficult when it comes to, we want to be able to do things for free, but unfortunately we have to charge for it. Otherwise, like we said, it's not sustainable. But it is a very difficult conversation to have. And so having some of that removed would reduce a lot of the stress and anxiety for all members of the team. Both, I know, our receptionist, when it comes to saying you owe us X amount, Mrs. Smith, but also the vets, where at least there's something in place to try and manage these kind of costs. So it's very valuable.
It's such a conflict. I mean, it really is such a conflict, and it goes back to a comment we made earlier, where you have pet parents or this perception that vets are just raking it in, and they're and you will talk to people who will say how traumatic it is when they have a pet parent or owner tell them, you don't care about my pet because you're trying to charge me all this. And little does that pet owner, that pet parent is in a moment of pain or panic, and so they're just reacting emotionally. But what they don't realize is that it's very possible that the services that are being offered to them have very little margin financially. That the vet is probably already pushing through as cost sensitive as a price as they can, and it just creates so much. Quite frankly, emotional fatigue for both sides. And so there have to be solutions moving ahead that get out of this a la carte, tit for tat kind of way that we buy pet healthcare right now. And it's not a sustainability, I think, in future. Pet healthcare is going to become more expensive. Costs are going to go up, and they're going to go up at a higher rate, more likely than inflation, than just normal, income is going to be going up. And so how do you battle that? So both sides don't end up in that conflicting and kind of lose-lose situation. There's a really interesting data point on bonding rate after pet deaths, and I'm sure you might know this, that return to a vet after a pet death is very, very low compliance, low frequency, even if that pet owner receives another or adopts another pet. And I think a lot of it just has to come, yes, from the trauma of losing a pet, but then the financial conversation that's part of that, part of the euthanasia and the treatment plans. And I think those financial conflicts are a lot of why that occurs. And so we just need tools to make it better.
I totally agree. And this has been a really fascinating conversation. I'm very, very interested to know, do you offer it worldwide? Is that the longer term plan? Are you hoping to expand your offering to different countries?
Yes, that is the long-term plan. We've had great interest in the Canadian market, and we would absolutely, that is on the horizon. Right now, we are U.S. based, but we hope in the years ahead that we're expanding that. I don't think that the U.S. has interesting challenges in its healthcare environment, but we're certainly not unique to this need, and quite frankly, the challenges that the pet parents have and the veterinarians have on both sides. And if we can create a win-win and improve some access and compliance all the way around, we want to see how far we can go.
Oh, well, congratulations on getting to this point. I think what you're offering is exceptional, and it's given me a lot to think about within my own practice, and the future of veterinary care. I mean, I think we all have to think about different ways of doing things. And I think we're all very historically sort of set of same consultation fees, or, being competitive with the person down the road. And we're not actually understanding the business because, we don't necessarily have the training in that or the guidance, and the support in terms of business acumen. So it's like understanding why a lot of people are wanting to sell to corporates and people maybe who understand, but there are lots of practices within South Africa who still are vet owned and vet run, and I think that this is a great way of being progressive within a practice and offering something that is needed.
Yes, my heart goes out to all of the privately owned and independents. That's my own family, my own in-laws are multi-practice independent owners, and there are ways to innovate, and everyone's path is different, whether it's they have a desire to end up partnering with a corporation, but there's so many different ways to be innovative, and most of our hospital partners are independent, because you're right, that's not always a skill set they come with, and quite frankly, why would you expect someone to have all those skill sets? You're a clinician, you're a surgeon, and you're also expected to know everything there is to know on the business side. That's kind of an impossible ask. And so, I think the call to action is always, it's okay to not know what you don't know, but go and find resources out there, so how you can be innovative, and you can set yourself apart. And there's such a wonderful story to be told for those that are doing that. And just, really would encourage all of those independent owners to say, give yourself a little bit of heads up time on the strategy of your business. And it's so hard. You're in the weeds every day, you're working hard, and what can you do? You force yourself to say, I'm going to take 5 hours a month and pay attention to, what's going on, and think about one strategy I want to deploy, and then bring resources to bear that can help you do that. And those little pieces over time will just make huge shifts. But it's so hard. We find, people to get that heads up time. Veterinarians are an incredibly hardworking group of people. And you tend to work harder. And sometimes it is, force your head up and figure out there are ways to work smarter and harder, at the same time, and bring experts in who can help you do that.
I totally agree. What an inspiring conversation. I am so grateful that you've taken time out of your day. Thank you. It's really interesting, and I'm keen to, I'm going to get stuck in and learn some more. You've inspired me to go away and look at my own business model. So thank you very much, Heather.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. Anything we can do, we're only a phone call away. Happy. We love, this is such an exciting area to be in. And, I love talking about it. I appreciate you taking time to have me on and share a little bit about our story and talk about what's happening. The industry is in such an exhilarating way. It's exhilarating, I think scary at the same time. But there's so much opportunity to improve upon how things have done. So I wish you the best of luck with your business, and I appreciate you having me on. It was a great time.
Oh, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode on the Paws Effect podcast. If you found the discussion helpful, please like, share, and follow our podcast. Don't forget to leave us a comment or review. We love hearing from our listeners. Remember, you can listen to us on your preferred podcast platform. Welcome back to Just for Pets. You're with Dr. Cara.
Hi, Doc. It's Jackson the Jack Rossi here, and boy, am I itchy.
Are you on a hypoallergenic diet?
Hyper what now?
Changing to a special diet will really help. And Just for Pets have a massive range. And flea and tick medication, special shampoo.
Ooh, how quick can you get some?
Order today and we'll deliver pronto.
I feel better already.
Justforpets.co.za. Vet approved, pet adored. Get it all to your door.